Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing yet another movie review for you all. This movie is a horror film from Australia, English language, released in the year 2024, directed by Zach Hilditch, and this film was called We Bury the Dead. So We Bury the Dead is about a catastrophe that happened off the coast of Tasmania. Tasmania is that little island that is below the mainland of Australia, so it's still part of Australia, but this has devastating consequences as a result of a failed military exercise from the United States. So it's basically wiped off the population of this island, and so it's a catastrophe that Australia want answers to, and so they're investigating what's going on, but at the same time they need to retrieve the bodies. So this main character, she is volunteering for the body retrieval unit, so she gets to Tasmania, but then we realise she has another motive for being there. Her husband was on a work trip in Tasmania when this thing happened. Now she's on a quest in order to try and find him, hopefully alive. So whether or not she does is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on We Bury the Dead. I really wanted to see this movie for two reasons. Number one, Zach Hilditch is a very good director. He made a movie called These Final Hours with Nathan Phillips that I thought was absolutely phenomenal. It was a very, very emotional journey into despair, hopelessness at the end of the world. And so if you haven't seen These Final Hours and you want to know my review, please look for it. I reviewed that many, many years ago, and I can still remember it. That's how much it hit me. And it was a very, very thought-provoking and emotional drama slash thriller slash horror. And so that was absolutely fantastic. So to see that he was making a movie called We Bury the Dead, and after watching the trailer, it is a zombie sort of movie. And so I thought, all right, well, this is very, very intriguing. And it also has Daisy Ridley. Now, I'm not a massive fan of Daisy Ridley, but when a big name American actress is in an Australian movie, that is something to really take note of. And so having those two reasons to see this movie, and on top of that, I'm a fan of zombie horror, I was not knowing exactly what to expect. This movie didn't have a massive cinema release that I thought was a great shame, because it is an Australian movie. We really have to get behind Australian films a lot more here in Australia. But I didn't get a chance to watch in the cinema, but after finally tracking this movie down with expectations that were limited, I actually come away from this movie liking it quite a bit. Now, a lot of people aren't going to like this film, and I can understand why people don't like it, is because it's not your typical zombie movie. And just as was the case with These Final Hours, it wasn't your standard apocalypse film. So if you go into this movie expecting George A. Romero, you're going to be disappointed. This is much more of a drama of coping with loss, guilt, and you're going through a world that has just complete ugliness and depression. So it's a very soul-searching film that I thought was absolutely harrowing, and I really liked it for what it was. In a subgenre that is so worn out through generic material, this is a film that was very, very different. This is a symbolisation using zombies in a completely different way. So as Daisy Ridley's character is going through Tasmania, you can just see all the dead bodies, and it's just really depressing. It was really, really sad just to see families just laying down, playing in the garden, or being at school and just being wiped out before they knew it. And so when you see all the devastation, it just creates a lot of emotion. And so when she's going through her journey, I just thought to myself, I want you to find your husband alive, but I'm not quite sure that's going to happen. So it's almost like an inevitable situation's coming, but you always have that slight hope that maybe it's going to pan out in a more positive way. But the movie just hits you with depression in a way that I thought was really cruel. And so it's giving you that false sense of hope, but you always feel on the other side you have to be prepared for the worst that's going to happen. And this is everything that is life. Things don't always work out in the end, and when a catastrophe happens, you have to face the ugliness. And so the ugliness of this movie had a very strong impact. Once again, very much like These Final Hours, this is a film that you don't feel entertained by. It's a film where it's an endurance test, just by the soundtrack, just by the acting. The script I thought was fantastic. I thought there were some scenes of violence, but as I said, it doesn't rely on that violence. It just relies on people trying to cope with a devastating event. And this devastating event was at the hands of someone else. And in this movie, having Daisy Ridley as the American, the way the Australian side characters kind of blame her for what's happening, that is, again, another human response to a tragedy. So this is a movie that is not going to hit you as a typical zombie film, and have a subgenre that I really like, that I'm getting sick of. Having these movies come in, yes, I can understand why it has hate, but that's why I really like this movie. And so there are some scenes that are actually quite funny. There are some scenes that are mildly scary, but I really like the idea of just having a drama about coping with loss. and so the devastation around you just makes you feel really down and out, but you also have those slight glimmer of hope where you kind of feel to yourself, all right, well, am I actually getting myself worked up for something that's not going to eventuate? And so that was something I really liked, and this is why Zach Hilditch is such a good director. If I have issues with this movie, as I said, it's not particularly issues that I had with the film myself, but I can see a lot of people having issues with it because they're going to go in expecting a typical zombie film. But if you want something with so much more emotion and a really harrowing journey through the visuals and the dialogue, I definitely feel as though this movie is a must for any zombie horror fan. So if it sounds like your kind of thing, go out there and see it, and I'm going to give We Bury the Dead 4 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, watch movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.